This episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by All Star Vacation Homes. And if you're going to Walt Disney World sometime soon, you're thinking to yourself, boy, it'd be great if we had a lot more space. All Star Vacation Homes is the perfect opportunity for you because they're going to give you a lot of space for not a lot of price. That's right. They've got great values on all sorts of units from small to large to huge. You know, we're talking, you can fit a dozen people in the house. Regardless of what you're looking for, All Star Vacation Homes can take care of what you need. Check them out online at www.allstarvacationhomes.com.
Bringing the world to your world, this is Walt Disney World Today. Here are Mike Scopa, Len Testa, Mike Newell, and your host, Matt Hochberg.
It's Friday, October 8th, 2010, and this is episode 783 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of the Initial Guide to Walt Disney World, which is at touringplans.com. Len, I didn't know if you were aware, but my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
That's awesome.
And they're like,
oh, wait, how's it go?
And they're like, it's better than yours.
Yeah, that's right.
Could teach you, but I have to charge. Also,
hey, but let me ask our listeners, by the way,
yeah.
Does anybody need some nachos? Because I seem to have some left over from last weekend.
For the $1,400 worth of nachos he bought?
Yeah, Jesus. That was I didn't tell you this. I got a call from my bank, a fraud call the next day. Like, hey, did you buy a lot of Mexican food yesterday? Like, yes, in Walt Disney World. And I plan on doing that often. And you're like, okay, we'll make a note of that. All right.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. And Mike, you missed out on the free nachos. Wake up, Mike.
What? I heard.
So it's funny. So Nulio. So I was. I'm running, right? I'm running Saturday night, right?
Yes.
And one of our listeners runs up behind me. His name is Joe. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
And says, "Are you Len Testa?" I'm like, "What?" At this point, I was used to it. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Len Testa." He goes, "Yeah, I'm Joe. I'm from New York. He's actually apparently from the same area as you." What? I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. That's what I said." So we talked about you for a little bit.
Oh.
I said you do all the work and I just show up.
Oh, Joe from City Island.
Yeah. Must be.
I'm thinking you were running in North Carolina.
No, that would be an event. That would be like it's a little weird. No. I was running in the marathon.
Oh, I know Joe from City Island. What's up, Joe?
Yeah. So Joe was really cool. I passed him. He and I passed each other a few times the night.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see him.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Oh, ye be a feisty one, ye be.
Pirate Muppets.
Pirates of the Muppets, yeah.
Nice.
Also joining us on today's show is Michelle Scribner McLean, a writer for allears.net. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hello, fellows.
And today we're going to be actually wrapping up a topic we had discussed, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken. The Wine and Dine Half Marathon event at Walt Disney World. And it definitely warrants talking about, given some of the events that occurred during the event. And let's start out with the I guess the expo and the pre-race things, and kind of just we'll get the snowball started at the very top and just roll it down the hill because it'll quickly go down from there. So, Michelle, what was your experience with the expo and the pre-race?
Well, I was comparing the expo to the January marathon experiences, and I was kind of disappointed. I thought it was very anemic. It was very, very small. Wasn't really much going on there, and I don't know. This is probably minor, but the shirts they gave us this year were I gave mine away right away. I didn't even want it. It was the ugliest shirt I've ever seen for a running shirt. But in terms of the other pre-race stuff, just before the race, we were out in a big field at the Wide World of Sports, and it was really kind of nice. It was really we were out with a lot of the Team All Ears people on the grass, and they had a pretty good DJ, and the weather was comfortable, so it was good.
Lennon, what was your experience like?
I thought the expo stuff was fine. I was in and out in 5 minutes. I saw one of our listeners, Phil, and his wife there. Yeah, Phil and his wife.
Phil.
Phil?
Phil
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 Connors?
Connors.
He was there, and I thought that part was fine. The parking, they were doing some sort of like softball tournament or something there at the same time.
Oh.
So we were parked on the way back. It was fine. It wasn't bad at all. I mean, it's the same sort of setup as the other ones. I only waited like 2 minutes to get my my stuff. The pre-race though was just a different story. I thought the bus transportation over was decent, but once you got to the starting area, once you got to the race area, you're in this big grass field. There was really no organization to it. Like, it was hard to find other people because there were very few navigational landmarks to use to say, okay, I'm going to meet over, at this section. So I basically wandered around a lot. My other question was this. My observation was this. We were in a grass field. If it had rained, like the day of, or God forbid, a couple days in advance of the race, which it's known to rain in Florida, right? It happens,
Right.
especially during hurricane season. Might be a decent chance of that. I'm just saying. We could end up looking like Woodstock there. That would have been really miserable. Then they would have had to have other stuff to do. They would have had to put us somewhere else. That was not good. The being in the crowds and everything was absolutely fine.
Scopo, what was your experience in the Expo and pre-race?
Okay, the expo was very much similar to what I had seen at the Princess Marathon Expo. It's not like the Granddaddy in January, so they don't have as many races, they don't have as many families, so they're probably not going to have as much merchandise. So that's one reason why it wasn't as robust. It still had a lot of interesting things, and I almost bought a couple of things. There were a couple of things that I thought I might be able to use someday, but I think that they're very careful with the merchandise because of historically they're not selling all of it, so they don't want that much left over. So I think that has a lot to do with it being not as robust as in the past. One of the things that I couldn't figure out is why there were not more host resorts for the bus transportation to World of Sports. I thought that one such resort was supposed to be the Beach Club, and it turned out to be the Yacht Club instead of the Beach Club, and it was kind of weird how that happened. I agree with Len about the grass. I mean, I didn't think about it till he mentioned it. And I said, "Wow, that's pretty wild." I think they need to do a little bit more emphasis on getting your bags checked before the race.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you can imagine, Matt, baby, about 125 yards long line waiting to get their bags checked, and I'm thinking,
but
oh my
it
God.
snaked too. It was like it went up one side, then it sort of made like an L shape, and then it doubled back on itself twice.
And you know what I was thinking, Len? I was thinking back when we did the Tower of Terror and how we were held off 1/2 hour because people were getting there late. Well, people, if you're supposed to be there at a certain time, if you're not there, too bad.
Yeah, I mean, you can still run and get a chip time. You're just not going to be there for the official start.
Yeah, so I think that was a problem. I think that the porta potties, I think there were plenty of them. I thought that was really good. I like the idea that the corrals were close to where we were gathering. We didn't have to walk 1.5 miles to the corrals before running.
That
13
part was good.
miles.
That part was good.
So I thought that was pretty good.
I want to add a few other things too. The arrival time was
way early.
Yeah, it was really, really early. We were there waiting for about 2 hours before the race started. And, it was different than January. We weren't standing there freezing, but it was just way, way too early.
But again, it could have been hot. It could have been hot. It could have been raining.
Right.
I mean, it's the grace of God that we were just standing there and the weather was temperate.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. And we would have been standing in the mud. The other thing I noticed, I don't know if Mike and Len noticed this, but it seemed to me that the volunteers who check what corral you're in were not checking as much as they do in the January races. So I actually saw people around us. We were all in B together. I saw people who were had C and D on their race tag. So I thought,
really?
That's really interesting because I know in January they're really, really strict about checking the corral.
They were checking. I think they just got overwhelmed because I passed one of the checker people, but I just think they got overwhelmed.
Let's move on to the race itself here, and let's talk a little bit about the race. I had heard, Well, I don't want. I'll let you guys talk first. The race itself. Talk about the course and what your thoughts were of it. Scopitz, why don't you start us off?
Okay, this was a course that I had never done before. It was much different than the one in January. And the one in January, it gets real boring once you leave the Magic Kingdom and you're coming back to Epcot. So after the first 10K, after the first 6.5 miles, it gets pretty boring. On this one, the first 3 were boring. And the next 1.5 wasn't too boring. It was in the Animal Kingdom, and then the next 2.5 was boring. And then once we got into the studios, it was kind of interesting. A few things about the course. It was at night, so I think everybody who started off expected that it would be quite challenging and that it would not produce what we call PRs, personal records. And one of the reasons for that is that it's at night and the footing is not well lit, so you're not sure as to where you're stepping. So you're not running as fast. You're not as frisky with your running, so to speak. When you get into the frisky, yeah. So when you get into the Animal Kingdom, I thought one of the 2 coolest things in the course was that when we entered we went through the turnstiles, we actually ran through what is best described as a corridor of glowing orange gigantic tusks. It's all it was just, or it was the rib cage of an animal that died, eons ago. It was really,
tough.
It was
really
very cool. That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Everyone had positive things to say about that. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible that now that you're describing it, but it was really cool.
No, it was really surreal. It was surreal. And then what we did is we ran up by Everest, and then by
And we could hear the Yeti.
yeah, we heard the Yeti growling, and then we ran
past Nemo. Yeah.
But it was the ground is uneven in there, so you got to be real careful. It got narrow in certain areas. It was dark in certain areas, so that was kind of tough. Coming out of the Animal Kingdom, there was a disc jockey, and it seemed like every other person wanted to know who won the Alabama-Florida game. So that was kind of funny. We were hearing that, and then so the run back from the Animal Kingdom to entering the studios was pretty much all highway, and that was pretty good. I could do a little bit more speed on that stretch. There was a like a down and back where we turned around. Then we got on to Buena Vista Drive, and it was dark for about 100 yards, completely dark, and everybody was complaining just before we got into the studios. It's like, what's going on? Why can't we have some light here?
So if you notice, there was a street light that was out there, and I don't know why they didn't have others, but I looked up at one point and there was one that was out, so it might have been that it should have been
because
lighted.
that was the only place that it was completely dark.
Yeah, there was this, and I looked up at one point, and there was a street light that was just out, so that could have just been a regular maintenance thing. I don't think that was.
You probably. All right. Then the other cool thing was, and I mentioned this to you, Matt, the other night before we recorded, when we got into the studios, we came in through the back way near the Tower of Terror and everything, and we got to the Streets of America. They had the Osborne lights on, which was kind of.
That is really cool.
Wait, did you think, Scopo, like I did? What's the Illuminations globe doing this close?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. At that point, I needed some water and a gel. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know, I don't know if there were Christmas carols being sung.
Well, they were playing Christmas music. I had my iPhone on, but they were doing Christmas music.
I mean, it was about maybe 65% of the lights were up, and they were lit, and they weren't dancing or anything, but that was kind of cool, And the thing is that I went on to the United States track and field site to check the course. I think we ran about 2 miles in the studios. We were just going back and forth, and we did a lot of, I thought, off stage than on stage running. So that was kind of, I don't know if I like that too much. That kind of cut into the time too, because if you're doing a lot of turns here and there, you really can't concentrate on a long stretch. The path from the studios to the to Stormalong Bay has always been a problem with me, especially when we've done race for the taste. It's a narrow road, and if people are walking 2 or 3 abreast, it gets very difficult. You have to say, "Excuse me," or whatever. I'm not going to run on the grass. It's not a good idea to run on grass during the day, and it's not a good idea to run on grass at night because you could easily twist an ankle. And I saw a few people rolling in the grass, so that was, and they weren't with anybody else, so it was not a good sight to see. What?
I was just going to say, it seems that the course itself was a real downer. Everyone I talked to, really, they had the same highlights that you mentioned, Mike, Animal Kingdom and the Osborne Lights. But other than that, they all thought that the race course was very boring, very uneventful. and kind of compounding the problem was the fact that Disney didn't allow anyone to cheer anybody on except for the finish line, right?
Yeah, there were very few people on. I mean, they were once in a while you'd see a cast member here and there in the theme parks, but that was it. And if the last 100 yards was Stormalong Bay, past Beach and Yacht Club, and we ended just before you got into International Gateway. So that was my take on the course.
So here's an interesting question from Laurel, who typed up some notes for us because she was on the pre-show, the pre-race show. Is 13 miles just too far to be running at night?
I didn't think it was too bad. I mean, it was the prep for the race was different, and I think I don't know, the listeners may not want to hear this, but I did read a lot of reviews and I saw a lot more people getting sick on the side of the road, and I think prepping for the race and figuring out when to eat and when to stop eating was tricky for people.
Yeah, it definitely got me. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you do the regular January race, you don't, you eat up until a certain point and then you sleep and you wake up and run kind of on an empty stomach or just with some applesauce. But I don't know. I did a half marathon a week before I did that one, and I had the exact same time to the minute. So,
wow.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
was it fun though? Were both races fun?
Yeah, I had a good time. I thought some things that I like were the mile markers were kind of neat. They had a country featured, and then often they would have music that would be from that country, which I thought was kind of neat. I thought one of the things I was interested in was the relay, how they were going to do the relay, because none of us did the relay, but they had a lot of relay runners, and the first person would run 5 miles, and then right after the Animal Kingdom, there was a switch off. So they made it very, very clear which lane you were supposed to go in. It didn't seem like it was a problem to me.
No, they looked pretty smooth actually.
Yeah, that went off without a hitch. The thing that I thought was kind of cruel was, I don't know if you guys saw this. I think it was when we were approaching behind the Tower of Terror. There was a chef there.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he was station, and he was like, "Oh, it was about mile 9." He said, "Oh, you're almost there," and so you're starving, you haven't eaten for hours, and you're smelling all this food.
It was wonderful. It was like a garlic something.
It was great, but then of course, well, this is a good segue because then of course you're looking forward to the wine and dine party afterwards, and you think, "Oh, 4 more miles," and well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, the after party and the post race and the after party. Unfortunately, things did not get much better. It seems.
Well, the race course I thought was fine, right? So pre-race, okay, there could have been potentially a problem. Bag check was a problem. Race itself, absolutely fine. The post-race bag pickup was bad.
That was awful.
And then so everything after the race ended just started bad and got worse.
The thing that happened after the race was that they funneled you into a small area,
like the Millennium Village,
course,
right?
The last thing, and I thought, this is the only time I've ever had this experience. I thought the volunteers were kind of snippy, keep moving. But the last thing you want to do after running 13 miles, believe it or not, is to stop. And they funneled us into the Millennium Village into a little tiny corridor, not the whole open up area, and we stood there for probably about 30 minutes, and I'm not claustrophobic, but I felt like I was going to be sick. I heard the lady next to me say that she felt like she was going to start crying. It was just, we were wall to wall people.
And I love all y'all, but it smelled in there.
Oh, it did. Yeah, a lot of people commented on that too. It was just, and they had all the bags in this sort of central area that were kind of dumped, and you went and told them what your number was, and they went to pick it up. But it was not good at all.
So the bag pickup was so you're in this little room, and it wasn't even clear what line. At some point, the line was so long that it wasn't clear what you were even getting in the line for. Whether you were getting in the line to get out of the building or to go pick up a bag.
That's a good point. There was nobody there to tell you this is the bag area.
I was going to say it was probably less than. I would say it was probably less than they used less than 1/4 of the space in there for bag pickup. 3/4 were for Party of the Senses and other stuff they were doing. So you can imagine 7,500 people trying to get through maybe less than 1/4 of the space in there. Think about that. And it was just, Michelle's right. There were people who were complaining. One person I had read said he saw 3 or 4 people fainting because it's true. After you've run 13.1, you want to keep moving. You want to slow it. You want to get your heart rate down. You don't want to just stop and cramp up. So that was very much an issue. I thought that what they could have done is perhaps let maybe 25 people in at a time every 5 minutes, and so there wouldn't be such a crush of people. You don't want to be close to anybody after being close to people for 13 miles,
And that is not the case in January. The January races, it's run very, very well. There are a lot more people, and what they did this time was that you dropped your bag off after standing in this long line at World of Sports, and they actually had trucks that brought the bags over and dumped them into Epcot. So it was not well thought out. And then after the bag check area, you emerged into this crush of family members and friends trying to get out into World Showcase, and it was just very overwhelming.
Yeah, and then you go to the party, and you just have, the party was billed as an opportunity to enjoy food and wine in an after-hour setting, kind of like almost like an e-ticket night type experience for that. There were no attractions open, just the food and wine booths, and it just seems like things got, even if you can believe it. I mean, we're not painting a pretty picture here, but things actually got worse with that party in just terms of crowds and logistics.
I saw at the American Pavilion, I saw the line for the women's bathroom to go all the way from where it is in the back left corner of the pavilion,
right by the Liberty Inn,
all the way to the front of the restaurant of Liberty Inn. And when I was in the men's room, and the lines were relatively short, there was still a line, but women were coming in there to get in the line with the men in the men's bathroom, and the floors were just nasty. It was just disgusting.
The only time I've ever seen it that crowded is one time I was at Epcot on New Year's Eve.
And you know what?
That's what it was like. It was, and people were sweaty, and they wanted to change, and they couldn't get into the bathroom. And all I was looking forward to, a little wine and a little, we had these coupons that they gave us for, a free drink and a free food. We didn't even use it because there were, I don't know, how many would you say, 50 people in every line? It was just
easy.
Way oversold, and the family and friends had to spend $35 just to get into the door. That doesn't even include, I think maybe they got one free drink and one free food, but $35 just to get in. And then we didn't even stay. We didn't use our coupons. We just left because we were just so frustrated. And I think we thought that, maybe if we walk a little further, after, again, standing in line for the bag check and our legs were kind of cramping up, then we thought, well, maybe if we go towards Germany or over to Mexico, there would be fewer people. But from what we read,
no,
that wasn't the case at all. You were there, right, Len?
I had to walk all the way over to Mexico to use my my drink coupons, and even then, I still waited in line a good 5 or 10 minutes to do it. I also heard though that they only sold 65% of the tickets to the event, meaning there could have been the thing could have been half again as large.
Wow.
There would have been riots at that point. I mean, there would have just been. It was just insane. The crowds, the post race crowds were. I couldn't find anybody. Scope. I couldn't find you or Michelle. I mean, I barely saw people I knew. The other thing was too, and this isn't Disney's fault, but I couldn't make phone calls out on my iPhone because there's so many people trying to text and use phones. I couldn't send text messages. I couldn't surf the web. I couldn't make calls. It was all just jammed.
Yeah, one of the mistakes that I made, we did have people there who came, to see us after the race, and other team members, and we didn't think of a meeting time because I kind of thought it would be just kind of, it's 1 or 1:30 in the morning. It'll be casual. We'll run into people, but we should have come up with a meeting place, and we didn't. So we didn't see anybody at all.
After the race on Sunday, I ran into every single person I talked to. I didn't go to the party. I didn't go to the race, and every single person I talked to, there was not one person who had anything positive to say about the event. No one. I said, "How was it?" Oh, no one said, "Oh, it was okay. It was fun." No. Everyone said it was awful, and it was just a completely. Everybody I talked to, I've never had that kind of situation before. Usually, you get a couple of people say, "Yeah, it wasn't bad. I had a good time," and then you got a few people who didn't have a good time. But this was it just seemed like nobody enjoyed themselves because
it was just too many people. I mean, they could have opened up all of Epcot, and then it would have been okay.
And some of the other restaurants too, because it was only the carts, as you said, Matt, that were open.
I mean, there wasn't enough. There weren't, and they could have brought in some porta potties too, right? And there weren't enough bathrooms. There wasn't enough food. There wasn't enough room.
I think you're right, Len, on a couple of things. They should have had a Hall of Epcot open. They should have had the finish line in the parking lot. They probably should have delayed allowing the non-runners in until the runners were there. I think there could have been fast passes for the runners, some kind of fast pass line for the runners to go to the kiosks. I mean, we paid $135, and we got what did we get? We got.
I didn't even use my food. I gave away my food voucher. I ended up going to Brazil to drink some post-race champagne, and then I ended up going to Waffle House to getting something to eat.
I can remember paying $75 or $78 for a half marathon about 5 years ago, and I got a shirt, I got some energy beans, I got some coupons, I got all kinds of stuff in my goodie bag. I don't know what this year Michelle mentioned. I mean, the shirt was, it's not the greatest shirt in the world. And the other thing is that after the race, they were given, they had Powerade and they had water, and then they gave everybody a brown paper bag. And in the bag was a muffin, a banana, and a Cliff Bar. The banana is the only thing that was worth it. So just there's just a whole bunch of things, and it begs the question: what will Walt Disney World and Sports Enterprises do next year? Will they say this is not a good idea to do this at night, or will they say let's see if we can make it better? That's the question.
Well, they can't charge. They can't charge more for it. It's already as much as the regular half marathon. They're going to have to work it along. Yeah.
The one thing that was nice was the medal. I have to say the medal.
Yeah, the medal
was very,
good.
very nice. And I was very curious to see if the relay people would get the same medal as the half marathon. And it was very similar, but a little bit smaller. So, but it was kind of a spaceship Earth, and then had cheese and grapes and sort of a sneakers in the middle, hanging off little trinkets on the bottom, hanging off. But that was very nice. But
it was interesting because the three of us, Mike, Len, and myself, attended the inaugural Tower of Terror 13K back in 2007, and that was a real disappointing event. We all thought. I thought they had a lot of problems, and that event was really I think was one of the worst put together events. But the great news was that the following year, 2008 and 2009, the race was so much better, and they dramatically improved on those things. So the only thing I can take from this event is that hopefully that if they do run this event again next year, that the precedent from Tower of Terror 13K would say that, well, the second time around they do a lot better job because this is the first time around and they were kind of shooting a little blind. That doesn't give them an excuse, but it gives you more hope, I guess, for anyone who's looking forward to it next year potentially.
Yeah, I mean, they'll do better next year, I think. Go ahead, that's it.
I was just going to say, Matt, this is the second time around, so they should have learned back in. I'm looking at my medal now, Tower of Terror medal. It was 2007, October 27th, I think it was. So that should have told them what they could do, what they couldn't do. I think that they took a lot. They made assumptions, and you have to take a shot at certain things, but I think that. When you do something like this, when you have the number of people that you have in a race like this, you have to think of the worst case scenario and try to figure out how to avoid that. And I guess that the logistics that just weren't thought out, and they need to do that, are, as I said in my active.com comment thing, I said, this is not going to be known as wine and dine. It's going to be known as one and done.
Well, I mean, and the other thing was I wanted to mention also
that was nice.
the people that were attending the party, the non-race people, they reported also issues getting into Epcot because you had to leave the park and come back in, but they did it for whatever reason through the International Gateway. If you know anything about the International Gateway entrance, there's only like a couple of turnstiles and I think 2 bag checks, so the lines were really long for that. And
people said it was long right at the beginning, too, because it started at 10:30, and everybody we talked to who was there said it's been this way all night. It wasn't like it was quiet at the beginning.
Yeah, that was one thing. That was one thing about the Tower of Terror race. At least that one, when the party was first going, when everyone was running, there were short lines, and then the lines got really long. But yeah, even during the party, from start to finish, it was just these really long lines. And I would be really disappointed. I mean, I feel bad for the party goers spent $35, but I mean, you guys spent $135. That's how much it cost?
Yes.
Wow.
And Len, I don't know if you know the stats. I think there were 12,000 people who started and only about 7,500 finished. Is that typical? Is that what happens in January? Yeah. We were looking at the results. So I don't know.
That's highly unusual. There's actually more than that though, because there's some of them were. I think the relay runners got the same bib numbers.
Well, we're going to wrap things up over here. I want to thank our sponsor, All-Star Vacation Homes. And, of course, there's no disappointment with an All-Star Vacation Home. I mean, you're getting a quality house, lots of space. There's no lines in your All-Star Vacation Home. And the only annoying kids in the pool at your All-Star Vacation Home are your annoying kids. So why not check them out online? Go to www.allstarvacationhomes.com. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, you can visit us online at wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and Michelle Scribner-McLean, I am Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.